Hey, what's up? It's Bryce Isaiah, and make sure you listen to the Latter-day Saints podcast. Oh, don't play with me. You better listen up. Get up that ladder and listen to the Latter-day Saints podcast. Oh,
all right. Once again, I'm Brandon Lawrence, co-host of Latter-day Saints podcast, joined today with my co-host, Brandon Murphy. We are lucky enough today to be joined by a true Survivor OG, Survivor nerd, reigning champion, I think, of like most spirit on his tribe before a tribe swap. Screw job.
Reigning
and that's Brian Corridan.
What's up? How you guys doing? How's everybody?
Oh, I'm fantastic.
Doing well, man. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. It's a nice distraction from the hellscape that we're living in.
I know, right? So that's kind of like why we even started this. We're just kind of bored Survivor fans, and we just, a few weeks ago, actually about a month ago, we started planning everything, and then the last couple of weeks have been recording a whole bunch. So we have a bunch of content to release here in the next few weeks. That'll be fun. That's
fantastic. Who else have you guys been getting to talk to so far?
We did Devins and David Wright, the first one. So we had David kind of hop on and surprise him. It was a fun he didn't know he was going to be on. It was pretty fun. And then we did Fair Play. We did Bryce. We were supposed to do Penner yesterday, but he had a medical issue pop up, and we're rescheduling for, I think, next week. And
you're getting some heavy hitters, some good talkers too.
Oh, I know. Fair Play. I think he talked for an hour and 20 minutes straight, and I was lucky to get a few words in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But he's
only supposed to have him for 30 minutes?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll come on for 30, and we talked for an hour and 20 minutes. So,
but when you're talking to a Survivor, like all you need to do is just get them rolling, and then half an hour later, you're like, so anyway, about my first question.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, like, you're a little bit of an exception because I think you're still really, really into the game of Survivor. Yeah. Most of the people we've talked to, we kind of just talk about their lives, what they've been doing since, which I kind of want to do with you as well. But given like that whole dossier thing and just how big of a fan you are of Survivor in general, I think it'd be fun to nerd out as well.
Totally.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, man? I know you're a big traveler, but everything's kind of crashed down, in that regard.
To say the least. Yeah, I was in Mexico in February, and we were taking the plane down, and the girls sitting behind us on the plane were like making jokes about Corona, like, you have Corona, no, you have Corona. And we're like, what's Corona? And remember those days when Corona was just a beer. And then that was the last trip I got to take. We got back, and within the month, everything was just shut down. I'm in New York City, so that really was obviously hit pretty hard back in the beginning. And it's really been remarkable how things have been good lately. I know obviously we're entering what looks to be a second surge here if we really remember over the first surge. But New York was really good. Like, I feel like everyone kind of kept checking in on me in March and April and acting like I was living through some zombie apocalypse. And I'm like, I'm not in a hospital, so I'm not quite frontline worker there. But I'm in Long Island City, which is a part of Queens right on the river. And so we were a little bit more removed from the thick of it. I didn't get to see the desolation of Times Square as much. I commute out to Long Island by car for my job, so I wasn't even on the subway anyway. So it didn't change a lot about what I did in New York. Restaurants in Long Island City were doing outdoor dining. Everything just kind of blossomed. So, to make it sound like a weird paradise, Long Island City in the summer was great, you guys. Like, we had beautiful outdoor seating that had never existed. Food trucks came from all sorts of places. People were very, very good in New York about social distancing and wearing masks. And I think that was really a case of the city just being a place where people get their shit together pretty well. So people in New York, I think, responded quickly, responded well. And I'm hoping the winter we can kind of get back to that mentality of just taking the proper precautions and being wise about it all.
And are you still working as an adolescent psychologist?
No, so I actually was never officially that. I did that in college. That was my major in college. I quickly realized that field is super depressing and really, really difficult. I did a lot of internships in college with it, up in the Bronx and things like that. And I was just like, oof. Also, a lot of psychologists are very crazy. So it's a field that you are kind of thrown into just really emotionally taxing situations. And it's very hard for me to separate life and work. So I kind of saw from a pretty young age that was not the path that was going to lead to sanity for me. So while I was in college, I was a SAT prep teacher on the side. And then when I graduated, I got a full-time job doing that. So I've actually been doing the same job. I'm like one of the only millennials who's had the same job since college. So,
Nice.
You enjoy doing that?
yeah, that's where I am right now. Actually, I'm in my office. Crazily, we are in the office. Fortunately, we all have our own offices, so I just basically sit here with my door closed all day, and I commute by my own car. So it's just a weird situation where you're having to like explain why I'm in a office right now. But here I am. We're running all our classes on Zoom.
Yeah, what
So
does
I
it matter
do-
if you're in the office?
Yeah.
If they question that? I mean, if you're in there by yourself, what does it matter?
Yeah, exactly. You guys should call my office and be like, "Hi, I heard you're in the office. That sounds really stupid. You guys should all work from home." Yeah. Anyway, we're doing all our stuff on Zoom. And yeah, so I get my adolescent psychology itch scratched on a daily basis because I work with a bunch of high school kids who are taking what they think is the biggest test of their lives. And I have to convince them it's not that.
Nope.
No.
Most schools don't even require it anymore.
I know, well, especially now during the pandemic. Yes, thank you for pointing out the volatility of this industry and the clarity that I might not have a job in the next 6 months.
Thanks, Brendan.
Right to the forefront with that one. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what next year looks like in this industry. Who knows? I mean, day by day. But, you know, I'm in a pretty competitive part of the country. I mean, Nassau County, Westchester County, Manhattan. So as even a lot of schools are test optional, particularly during the pandemic, we still get a lot of kids who are like, well, there's a chance for me to show I'm very smart. I will be taking that. So we still have a lot of demand here. It's just a matter of seeing where this road goes in the next 12 months. So that's where I am.
Yeah.
So if you were to sit down and take the SATs, what do you think you'd get?
Oh my God, what do I think? I've gotten a perfect score in the past 35 SATs I've taken.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know you'd actually sit down and take them, but that's incredible.
Yeah. Actually, funny enough, I have them literally right here, right next to me. These are SATs that I literally am just going through now for research purposes and writing some materials from them. But yeah, as part of my job, I have to take every single SAT that gets released, and I have not gotten less than a perfect score since 2005.
What'd you get
on the record book?
What'd you get coming out of high school?
The first time I took the SATs, I had a 1510. I had an 800 math and a 710 English. The second time I took it, I got a perfect score.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that when it was at a 1600 back then, right?
So it was 1600. Now this has become a podcast about the SAT. Surprise!
Hey, we're gonna teach you things. Haha.
Yeah, guys. So it was at a 1600 up until 2005. Then it went to 2400 until 2015, and then in 2015 it reverted back to 1600.
Ah, okay. I didn't know
it went back.
Yeah. So now it's back to math and verbal.
Yeah, so I'm
Brandon,
old
what'd
too.
you
So
get?
I got like I think a 1450 or something like that.
That's very good. Unless it was out of the 2400 scale. Which
No, I'm more closer to your age. So
Okay. All right.
yeah,
I got like
it
a
was at a 16.
2100 something.
So you did the 2400.
Yeah, I took them in 2011 probably.
All right. Yeah.
He's the baby.
Okay. I know. I'm like, oof, okay.
I know. He ages me. So we got obviously work. You've got outdoor dining. You've got food trucks. But I mean, how are you solving the lack of Survivor? How are you solving the lack of travel? Like, what's your thing to solve that itch?
Talk about the real problems facing the world right now. We do not have Survivor, and we're not going to have it for like another year. You got to think that they got to think something about that, right?
I've heard rumors of the Philippines maybe.
Yeah, I saw those rumors. I mean, I'm on Reddit every day. I eat up Reddit like popcorn.
That's actually like all started.
Other subreddits off that, like the rank down Reddits. I'm all over it.
Yeah, that's how me and Brendan met actually, is on Reddit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Those Reddits are, I mean, they pass a lot of time for me. I'm a huge Reddit. I mean, I'm like first and foremost a gigantic Survivor fan. I mean, literally the only episodes I've ever not watched. No, only one. The only episode I didn't watch was the Island of Idols finale because I was just so fed up with that season by that point. That was fresh off the heels of Edge of Extinction, which was such a huge disappointment. And then Island of the Idols, I just saw like Janet's idol nullifier coming like a train attacking me. And I was just like, nope, not here for it. And I didn't watch it.
She's amazing.
She's wonderful. And who wanted to watch? It was just like so depressing to know that she had this idol that she was so excited about finding. And then like Dean of all people was going to nullify it. I was like, I'm not here for this. I watched the show to be like thrilled and enjoy it. And this is going to be so depressing to watch her just completely lose her chance at winning. And again, like, who am I left with here? It wasn't exactly a thrilling cast.
Right.
So.
And now in retrospect, you got Nora in the finals too, with all the crap she's been spewing in social media.
So here's the thing, like, it's just when you cast people to be on Survivor, you have to be really careful about the platform that you're giving them. I mean, I'm somebody who was on the show 15 years ago. It was pre-social media. I have no platform. You know, I have like my few Twitter followers and my few Instagram followers. But by and large, people don't know who the hell I am unless they're a real Survivor fan. And if you do know,
right.
you know, if you're going to that kind of depth with the game, then you're like my people. You're somebody who loves the show as much as I do. But when you have all these new people like the Rodneys and the Noras and the Joe Anglams and like,
oh my God, Joe is driving me insane.
Guys, it's just, I mean, you know, I'd say, pardon me to the listeners who agree with them, but it's just like, we're at a point where I'm just like, no, guys, that's not okay. Like, it's not okay to be somebody who is so defiant in the face of math and science. It's just not okay.
But it's crazy. About a third of the population thinks that is okay.
Well, of course, and that's the problem.
There's such a huge echo chamber.
Yeah, well, that's what the interesting thing about being on Survivor is. You do have a little bit of a broader scope in terms of who you're friends with on Facebook and things like that. You're just your social media followings. You just get a wider net cast. So while I'm used to, I guess, in my more inner circle, having an echo chamber, right? When you go to social media and you are on the show and you're connected to all these people from different casts and seasons, and you're just like, holy God, there's just a lot out there that's not just, you know, the fairly social liberal New York City environment. You know, most of my time when I'm in the city and in my classes too, I'm like often the only white guy in my class, right? I mean, my kids are all, many of them are Asian or South Asian, East Asian, a lot of Black kids, Hispanic kids. And so when you just like cast your eye closer to the rest of the country, you're just like, oh God, okay, yeah, Jesus, this is really intense. And people have very, very strong opinions of things that they're maybe not fully informed about, which is just really disastrous, obviously, for a society. So, and then, I don't know, I got really strong opinions on this, and I'm going to alienate a bunch of people, which is probably not the purpose of this podcast. So maybe I'll rein it in here. But,
I mean, the purpose is...
We're in agreement with you, though.
Is to get to know you. We're all for hot takes.
Hot takes. Is it a hot take to be like, hey, maybe you should listen to the doctor? Is that a hot take? Like, is that where we are?
No, it shouldn't be, but...
Yeah, you shouldn't have to say that, but Dunning-Kruger effect, you know.
What effect did you say?
The Dunning-Kruger, right? The one where they know just enough to be super dangerous, but they don't know enough to like actually formulate an opinion that should be listened to by other people.
Yeah. I just think there's a lot of insecurity. I think there's a lot of resentment. I think there's a lot of bitterness about being told what to think and told what to believe. And how do you know? You don't know my experience. And I get it. So, but really, you have to know what you don't know. And you have to know who knows more than you do. And I don't, but I know that the doctors do. So I would listen to the doctor. So I'm not telling you because I think I know. I'm saying I think we should listen to the doctors because I think they know better than I do.
I had to argue with a family that I diagnosed their like elderly grandma with COVID, and they didn't believe that they had it. So it's like, I don't know what to tell you, but she has it.
She has it. It's not a fake thing. I mean, imagine how coordinated an effort this conspiracy would need to be. Like, really? That just seems remarkable to me that you think anybody's capable of that mass conspiracy.
Right. That every country in Europe, you know, is also conspiring against us.
Yeah, there's a whole global conspiracy. You're right. Yeah. You really figured it out there. Like there's a secret internet where all this was occurring, and you know no government picked up on it beforehand. Yeah. So I mean, really, seriously, Nora, get your. I mean, honestly. You should not be turning to Nora
for putting her in her place a couple times.
It's been fantastic to watch, like Max Dawson and Steve.
Oh, he's been wonderful. Max has been. I actually messaged him a few times, just giving him kudos about some of the stuff he's posted. Him and Victoria.
Oh, Victoria's been awesome. She went right on to Nora as well. Julia Carter. I mean, a lot of them have been
Yeah,
just
Julia as
attacking, and it's fantastic. It's just it's good to know that even though we're all put on Survivor because we are to some degree crazy, that there's enough sanity that you can still look up to some of these people.
well.
Definitely.
What was the application process like for you back then? Because this was
Oh yeah.
29
So you
seasons
filled
ago,
out a
right?
stone tablet, you chiseled it in, you cast it into the sea, and hoped for something. So I remember I sat in my house. I didn't tell anyone who was applying because I didn't want anyone to know about it. I was very superstitious about jinxing it. So nobody knew, not my parents, not my college roommate. I was a senior in college. I actually applied 3 times. The first 2 times I applied, I got through to semifinals. So back then, I know that's completely different these days, but back then you had to put together a VHS, and it was a 3-minute video, and then there was like a 14-page application. So and then from that was, back in the day when there was like 60,000 people would apply, then they would call back 500 people into regional semifinals. So from those regional semifinals, they would pick 50 people to fly to LA. And then once you were in LA, you went through the whole gauntlet of interviews there, right?
We stay in that hotel, right? And you're kind of stuck
the
there.
DoubleTree. It was the DoubleTree Santa Monica. For anyone who wants to go like scope out, I don't know if they still do that. But I remember I sat in the library in my house. So I was just a boring white kid from Connecticut. I had no real interesting hook. So I went to Columbia. So I figured the Ivy League would be the way to get on the show. So I wore my Columbia shirt. I threw it in the dryer right before so it looked tight. I had a wall of books behind me. I figured even if someone was just going to fast forward through it, at least they could see Columbia, so they could get like Ivy League stereotype right off the bat. And then it was just a bunch of chest thumping. It was completely braggadocious, to use the SAT word, of just really, I'm so smart. I did well. I got a perfect score on my SATs. I'm a Phi Beta Kappa, Columbia Magna Cum Laude. And I knew that would just get their attention. So each of the 3 times I applied, that did get me to the semifinals, but I got rejected for Vanuatu, and then I got rejected for Palau. And I was so crushed when I got that rejection. So I had been stuck in this honors psychology program at Columbia that I really hated, but I just decided it was important to do because you're supposed to do the thing that's academic and blah, 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 blah. And so I was in this honors program, but I was like, guys, it's fine. I'm going to get on Survivor and it's going to save me from this hell. And I will, don't even worry about it. Just go through these stupid research projects that you don't care about. Who cares? You're going to get on Survivor. So when I got that phone call, they were like, you're not right for the mix. I was like, excuse me? No.
Oh,
that's not how the story ends. Absolutely not. So that actually inspired me to drop out of the honors program because I realized how much I hated it and how much I thought Survivor was just going to save me from it. So that was a great decision. I was thrilled to get out of that program. And then I really focused on what was going wrong in the semifinal interview because I kept getting to the semifinal interview and then getting cut. So I was like, okay, clearly there's something wrong with my video. So they like my video, they like my application. I would watermark my application with, you will pick me, you want me. So just very light gray font across the back of my application. But not subliminal enough to not get noticed, just enough that they would obviously see it and be like, wow, this kid really wants it. So in my interview, I realized I wasn't giving them enough of the, see, this is, by the way, this is what I'm talking about, where you just set a Survivor talking, and then half an hour later, you're like, I had a question. So in my video, in my interview, I knew that I wasn't giving them enough of what I was purporting to be, this cocky Ivy Leaguer, because it was really just a front I was putting on. But it wasn't totally manufactured. It was just taking that and dialing it to 11, and they could kind of see through it in person because I wasn't an Ivy League douchebag ultimately. And so I said, okay, 3rd time, you gotta do this. You gotta commit. So I was in my interview with Adam. He was my casting director. And it was a different casting director that time. The first 2 times it was a woman. So now I had a new guy, and he called me in for the semifinalists. I went to CBS Studios in New York, and it was a tiny room. I mean, it was like a 10 by 10 black room. There were 3 chairs there with the casting agents, and the cameras just directed at you. and you're sitting there as if you're under interrogation. And see, they don't do this anymore, but you just are really pushed with as many needles as they can find to try to break you and to see where your breaking points are. So he would say, oh, you know, you're just a New York City kid, you never hack it in the jungle. And I was like, first of all, I grew up in rural Connecticut, so nice try. Second of all, you can say anything you want to me, you're not gonna offend me. It's literally impossible to insult me. And he was like, what does that even mean? I was like, well, I'm a psychology student, and
that carries a lot of water.
Yeah, you know, really pull that card out. Everyone loves a 22-year-old psychology student. So he was like, what does that even mean? I was like, well, I have an insult theory. And my insult theory is I don't believe in insults. I don't think it's fair to be insulted, because an insult is either true or false. And if the insult is false, why would you be insulted by that? Like, it doesn't even dawn on me to be insulted. If you came to me and you said, Brian, you're stupid, I'd be like, well, you're objectively wrong. I'm not stupid. So false. This bears no weight. I'm not insulted by what you just said, because that's a you problem. That's not a me problem, because literally it's not even factually true. So I'm not insulted by your mistaken perception. Doesn't bother me. Out the door. An insult can be true. And if an insult is true, what right do you have to be insulted, but to be offended by that? Because it's true. So if you said something like, you know, Brian, you have big ears, or Brian, your voice is annoying, or something like that, I'm like, okay, here's the thing about that. It's either something I can change or something I can't change. And I can try to change it if it bothers me, or I can embrace it if it doesn't bother me. But those are my options. My options are not get offended by the truth. It's literally fact. So why would I be offended by it? So you can't insult me. I am impermeable to insults. You will not be able to insult me. And then I looked him dead in the eye and I said, so like if I called you a little bit dumpy, you really can't get offended by that. And inside, I died. Because I was like, oh my God, that is a horrific thing to say to a human being who has feelings and emotions. What is wrong with you? But I just had to commit, and I stared at that guy dead-eyed. I just held that look about 3 seconds longer than it's comfortable for someone to hold eye contact. He just like, you could see in his face, he just blanched. And he just like fumbled with his clipboard and was just like, okay. And of course, I'm just like puffing my chest out, holding it. Inside, I am falling completely apart because I'm not like that. But I just knew I needed to give them this kind of like attitude in this interview and turn off any filter. And so then I leave this interview and my legs turn to jelly, I pretty much just like fall apart in the hallway. I'm just like, I can't believe I did that. And then a few weeks later, he called me back. And he's like, so we are bringing you to LA for the finals. And that was obviously the first time I was getting to the finals. And he's like, do you know the best thing you did in the interview? And I said, no, I don't. What was the best thing I did in the interview? Because at that point, they become your advocate. Because once they bring you to LA, that casting agent is they push for you, right? So they want you to get on. I don't know if they get some sort of commission or cut or anything. But at that point, now they're like presenting you to Lynn Spillman and the CBS team, and they want you to get cast because they found you, right? So then he starts to give you advice. So he was like, okay, the best thing he did was call me dumpy. And I was like, self-esteem check, bro. That's not great. So he was like, no, it was fantastic because it was a total soundbite. It really showed, your willingness to be a character, and it showed that it actually worked great for me too, because I was able to put you forth and propose you to my bosses without letting what you had said to me affect my judgment. So it made me look good, it made you look good. And I was like, cool. And then he's like, and actually what's really funny is that word you chose to use, literally a week ago, my grandmother told me that I was putting on too much weight. So he's like, you had really just like struck a nerve. And I was like, that's what I do. So then I got to finals, and that's a whole ball game. I was a senior and I had to take a week off of college, and they, it's not great to miss obviously a week of seminar classes. So I told them, well, I had a medical emergency. And I didn't want to talk about it because it was really embarrassing. So my roommate thought I was getting a testicle removed, and he just called me one nut for the rest of the year. And I just couldn't say anything about it. So
Wait, how was that even like that was his number one hypothesis is, oh, he's getting a ball removed?
I mean, I was basically being super cagey about it. I was like, I have a medical thing. I will be unable to talk to anybody, and I will be in the hospital for several days. And he's like, is it cancer? And I was like, it is not cancer. I would love for you to stop asking me questions at this point. And he was like, so it's something to do with your balls. Like, what
That's a quick jump, though.
Yeah, well, it is college. So it goes straight to balls, you know? Yeah, so then I didn't even tell my parents where I was. Oh, no, that's not true. My parents didn't know because they were home. I got the call over spring break, and I was home in Connecticut. So I was home when I got the call that I was going to finals, so they did know. But I didn't tell anybody else, and it was great. I mean, finals is nuts. That's the thing that no Survivor fans really get to see unless they, you know, are fortunate enough to be selected for finals. And again, I don't know what it's like these days, but that was a game all its own. So you're there for a week, sequestered in this hotel, and you're allowed out only for breakfast, lunch, dinner at scheduled times, and for a gym period. And then otherwise you have to be in a room ready at any moment to be called up to the presidential suite for interviews. And you also go through this series of psych experiments, you meet with the doctor, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, you start to scope out the competition, obviously, you know? Yeah. So I remember seeing Gary there, and I saw Blake and Brandon, Cindy, you know, you see these people, Susie Smith, who ended up being obviously the finalist on Cabone, she was there. EJ Averill, who ended up winning The Amazing Race, was there. So yeah, you just like scope out. I'm trying to wear as nondescript stuff as possible. I don't want to give away anything about who I am or where I'm from or anything like that.
Yeah, I remember Danni saying that's where the recognizing Gary as a quarterback started, was during her finals. It's like she recognized him but couldn't place him, but then figured it out later before the show even started.
So that's the thing. That's why when people are like, how could she have known? Producer must have told her. It's like, you guys don't know there's a whole series of times when we've seen each other before this, right? Including a full week in a hotel. And there are a bunch of times we were all in the same room. I mean, when we took our IQ tests and our psych tests, we were all in a room together. Maybe they split us up into two groups. Maybe it's 25 and 25. And at, you know, the meal periods, you're all separated at different tables with your you know, bodyguard of the casting directors walking all around, making sure you don't talk to anybody. But you certainly see everybody. I mean, and then honestly, even, you know, we arrived in Miami, one by one once we were cast, and then we had to meet in the lobby the next morning to fly to Guatemala. And you know, you're in the airport, you're on the bus, you're everything. I remember Margaret and I had the same exact puzzle book, and I like showed it to her. I was like, look, I also like puzzles. We should have an alliance.
And I'm a psych major.
Exactly, I'm a psych major. Yeah. And so you just have a ton of not interaction in terms of spoken, but certainly there's a ton of visual interaction among the contestants well before the game has ever even begun, well before you even finally cast. So there's a lot of opportunity to kind of see people. So for Danni to recognize Gary is not nearly as suspicious as people I think maybe thought at the time.
That'd be a really weird plug by production anyways, to just pick kind of one person early on to be like, you're the one that should recognize the quarterback. Like,
right. Again, to go back to this idea of like conspiracy theories, like, you think there was like a mass conspiracy to like plant Danni to recognize Gary, and they like somehow scouted Danni because she would recognize a quarterback from Michigan? Like, no, guys, this just happened. Sometimes things just happen. Yeah, and then you get cast, and it's you know, you get your shots. I remember they called me up the final day of casting, and they were just like, okay, so we have some pretty big news. Are you ready? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And they're like, you're in the top 20. And I was like, what the fuck does top 20 mean? Like, what, top 20? What, how many people are, what this is not news. So then they give you some shots, and they're like, we just have to make some final casting decisions, and we won't have a final cast really for
So basically at that point, you're at worst an alternate.
Exactly. I guess that's what that is. Yeah. So that ended, that was like April of 2000. No, sorry, 2005, excuse me. It's my college. So that was April 2005. And then the day I graduated from college, I got the phone call from Adam, the same guy. And he was like, hey, how you doing? I was like, oh, I just graduated college. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll give you a call tomorrow. I was like, Adam.
Like, hell no, you're going to tell me now.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was like, no, I'm just teasing you got cast. So I was, the day I graduated college, that was the second coolest thing that happened to me.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Getting onto Survivor was nuts. And then you have to send in your clothes and all that kind of stuff. And they approve all that. Get your malaria medications. And yeah, it was a whole process. And it's just a part of the game. So when people feel, you got voted out first or something, and you're like, oh, you didn't really get the Survivor experience. Well, they didn't get the Survivor experience that viewers know. You didn't get the Survivor experience of living in the jungle for a really long time, or you didn't get the Survivor experience of getting to play with the trolls online. But there's a lot for all these people who've been first boots. They spend a lot more than 3 days involved in Survivor, before they were voted out. So there's a lot that goes into it. And that's, I think, why the fraternity is so strong. Even if you were someone who went out very early, you just have this inside information about what it took to get you there. And again, I don't know what it is today. I do think that they're making a more concerted effort to actually put fans of the show on nowadays again. I think that they've kind of moved a little bit past that actor phase. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how long the audition process is anymore. I don't know really what that's looking like.
Well, you just mentioned that, the fans don't really see this whole part of it. And the other thing the fans only see the edit, right? So is there anything in your edit that you think would have went differently or should have went differently, or were you pretty happy with it?
I mean, they were super generous to me. For someone who was voted out 7th, they gave me, not like, dominating airtime, but I got a lot of good storyline. I was thrilled with my edit. I felt like I was part of the show, especially for those pre-merge episodes. It's just thrilling to be a super fan of the show and then get to be on the show. And, you feel bad for people like Chelsea Townsend or Purple Kelly. Not that I don't know. I don't think Purple Kelly was a fan of the show to begin with. Chelsea, I don't know. I think she might have been, though. So you just imagine these people who put all this blood, sweat, and tears on the show. And yeah, you're not there for TV exposure. That's certainly wasn't my fascination with the show, but you want to see your story told if only for your own sake, to be like, I was part of this. I want to see my story. I did this. How did I factor into the big picture? So when you're so heavily edited out of it, I just think that's so devastating for these people who wait so long and who know the intimacies of what really happened and just see it. I was reading Dalton Russ has been doing those Entertainment Weekly retrospectives questionnaires with the contestants.
Yeah, that's been interesting.
Yeah, I did one back in, June, July, whenever it was, but with Sunday from Millennials vs. Gen X, she had a great answer where she said, there was this one challenge which really, overcoming her initial bout with cancer, and it was the anniversary, and it was like really sentimental and big deal for her, and she was so excited to see that play out, and it just had nothing to do with the bigger storyline of that episode, so of course it's not there. Maybe relegated to a secret scene online at best. So for me, everything that I remember being significant played out on TV for me, which was great. There was the whole thing with Morgan, with Blake, with the swap, obviously the swap. The only thing that kind of was watered down was my 3-2-1 plan, which then Suri went on the next season to perfect. That's what I tried to do when I got voted out because Danni, Brandon, and Bobby John were 3, obviously old Macomb. And then there was Gary and Amy and I. And Gary was, first of all, what I really didn't know at the time was that Gary and Amy since sold me the fuck out. And they were just like, we'll get rid of Bob, we'll get rid of Blake, and then Brian can go next. So, but just okay, for me not knowing that, I was really obviously eager to keep going and to make the merge. And I was super confident that I could win that game. The joys of a confident psych major, 22 years old. So Gary, while he was gaslighting me into thinking I still had a chance, was like, well, we can't be doing a tie. Like, a tie is just a really bad idea. We can't do a tie. Like, tie. And I was like, but it doesn't have to be a tie. It can be the 3-2-1. We can split these votes a bit because we don't need a majority. We just need a plurality here. So He's like, what makes you think they're going to split their votes? I was like, what makes you think they're going to split their votes? They literally did last night. So when we voted out Blake, you know, Danni and Bobby John voted for Blake, but Brandon voted for me. So I was like, they have literally proven they will split their votes. That has already happened. So if we can convince them to do something similar tonight, we can get enough votes to take out Bobby John. So I had said, you know, Brandon feels very bad about voting people out. So why don't we tell him, you know, Amy's got a bum ankle and it's just really not a great idea for her to be in this game anymore. And, you know we lost, someone has to go. It just, you know, none of us want to go home, but for the sake of Amy's injury, it just makes sense to send her home. So we'll vote for Amy. But, you know, I know you don't want it to be unanimous. And I know that obviously we don't want her to feel like this was a complete rejection of her. So, you know, Brandon, it's fine. I don't care. You've already voted for me before. Vote for me again. It doesn't matter. It'll still be 4 votes for Amy, 1 vote for me. And then, you know, whoever Amy votes for, it's no big deal. It's fine. So that was the plan. And the plan was then Bobby John and Danni would be voting for Amy and Brandon would be voting for me. And then Gary, Amy, and I could put 3 votes on Bobby John. So that was what I thought would be happening heading into that tribal council. So when Rafe had the opportunity to give somebody immunity, this was, again, way before all of this, like, individual immunity and idols and stuff, right? I mean, Gary hadn't even found it.
He had the very first one a couple episodes later.
Exactly. So when we had this opportunity for Rafe to give somebody immunity, we had no precedent for understanding what that would do if somebody he gave immunity to had votes. Would we have to re-vote? Would those votes be canceled? Would they? We didn't know. We had no idea. So I really needed me to get 1 vote, Amy to get 2 votes, and Bobby John to get 3 votes. So when this was not on television. We were each given an opportunity to speak our mind to Rafe about what we thought he should do with the immunity. So when it came to me, I said, Rafe, you should give the immunity to Gary, because Gary had nothing to do with the votes that night. So I just needed the immunity going somewhere where there was no harm of screwing up this really delicate plan. Rafe was going to give the immunity to Gary anyway. Rafe did not care for me in the game. I think we were too similar in archetype, and I think he didn't trust me, rightfully so. And so, I mean, there was never even a remote possibility that Rafe would have given me the immunity. So when, you know, the votes get read, obviously it's 5-1 all against me. And then there's like let's see who Rafe gave the immunity to, and it's of course Gary. Not because I told him to, but because I think he was just closest with Gary anyway. But that's kind of the story of how I end up going home. And that's a real bummer, because I had so much more game in me. And I think that I love that game. And it's just a shame for me. I mean, not really for anyone else. This is really a private personal.
Well, on the Survivor sub, you're always like one of the people that they're most interested in having come back because of how you went out. It was like total just victim of the numbers on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was a thrill to vote out Blake, not because Blake was a bad person or anything of that nature.
The golden child.
Yeah, golden boy. But just to feel like I had been dealt such a crappy hand with that. And as you point out at the beginning of, you know, with the tribe spirit, I had the most tribe spirit. So that's how I end up on the wrong side of the numbers. And yeah, I mean, I think also socially, I mean, if I'm being honest and introspective, it was not the best season for me socially in terms of fitting in. I think that, you know, as you saw in episode 5 of Guatemala, it's just a super religious tribe and just pretty conservative vibe in general. I mean, honestly, I think out of our whole cast of 18 people, I probably can count on one hand the people who aren't more on the conservative side. So you know, it's a social game. It wasn't my social hand. So that's another reason I was obviously likely to be voted out there. But I mean, I love my cast, and I think we had a really great time. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Guatemala's a good season.
So if you look back at Palau, demographic-wise, I guess you fit in Ian's shoes? Yeah,
I think it was Ian, right? In terms of our ages and just being white guys, young white guys, it would have been Ian, right? I'm not Greg Carey. I'm not Kobe. I'm not.
I love
John
Kobe.
Libby. Kobe is a right and a half. I mean, Kobe. I've been in touch with Kobe ever since the show. So Kobe is certainly a character for sure. He's a good guy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's, and then Vanuatu, it would have been. I don't even know that anyone on Vanuatu was really of my like ilk. So
yeah, it was kind of a weird season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did this dossier come to be? What actually went into the work to make this?
So Danni, and so obviously, you know, we know the rumors of Winners of War for a while. So we have a group chain of the wine and cheese. So it's Stephen Fishback and Sophie and Courtney Yates, Eliza, Franny, and Charlie Herschel and I.
It's a fun group.
It's a great group. But actually, we were just chatting this morning. And actually, right before this, I got off the phone. I was talking with Eliza on the phone right before this. She's running for DA of Manhattan.
I know. What a badass.
She is a super, super, super badass, and it's incredible the work she's doing right now. I mean, if anyone's listening and would like to donate, just Google Eliza Orland's Manhattan DA, and you'll get all the information you need. We were just on the phone right before this. So, yeah, there's other people we're super close with too, Andrea and Josh Canfield and Kim Mullen. But we were, we're pretty old school, everyone on that chain, except, Franny and Sophie, seasons 22 and 23. But yeah, I mean, so we go really far back, this group. And so now most of them don't even live in New York anymore, but we still have our chain that we've had for, I don't know, like a decade at this point. So I would have had a point in starting this story, and that point was because you asked about the dossier.
Dossier. Meandering. All right.
And so, so we obviously were in kind of the know about who was getting cast and who wasn't getting cast and the rumors and all that. And obviously we're like on Reddit all the time. Sometimes we get as much information from Reddit as we do from other people. We're like, oh, well, Reddit is this. So we sent a note to Danni. And I sent Danni a note on maybe Instagram or Facebook or something and said like, hey, just in case you're going on vacation pretty soon, Eliza says, don't trust Parvati. And then so Danni just like replied back with like a wink. And then about a week later, Danni writes back again and says like, so what would you guys have in terms of some advice? And then I was like, okay, here we go. So then we get on the phone. Danni and I talk on the phone, and she's been busy. She's got a business in Kansas City. She's got kids. So she hasn't kept up as closely with the show, certainly as I have. Sure. That's a high bar to cross, though, because I really am a total Survivor nerd. So she called because she was like, well, I know you'll be really updated with everything that's going on. So I had to kind of fill her in on just some of the later twists, the idol nullifier, all this stuff. She knew, but she didn't have the depth of, I say depth of knowledge as if it's a positive and not just like crazy super fan knowledge like I have. So,
neuroses.
Neuroses, there's the word. Psychology major. That's the theme of this podcast. So, so I put together a dossier for her. So I went back through up until Kim Spradlin. I didn't go past that because she kind of knew Yul and Sandra and Amber and Ethan. Right. They were more old school, so she knew them. And I didn't put together a dossier about Sophie because I felt like, I'm very close with Sophie. I'm like, I'm not gonna like out Sophie here. So I didn't do. So it stopped at Kim Spradlin. And it was every winner from that. So it was, in fact, did I include some of the people who weren't on? No, I didn't include Cochran because I knew he wasn't on. And who else? Was there anyone else from the early 30s that were? And I knew Mike Holloway wasn't on, so I didn't include him. So I think actually it was just the people who were. So it was Kim Spradlin, then Denise, and so on and so forth, up through Nick Wilson. And I put together this really intense, this is like, crazy stuff. But I put together photos of all the people from their pregame interviews, plus photos of them at their final tribal council. So you can see like the change, the progression and the way they looked. And then it was just the bio info that I got from CBS.com. And then just a whole write-up of what they did, what to watch out for, how many idols they found, how many advantages they found, what kinds of methods they used to find the idols, who had already played on those same beaches in Fiji already and would have the advantages of knowing where to kind of look. You know, things like, okay, well, so-and-so found an idol because he got up at night when everyone was sleeping. So just like be aware of that. Or like so-and-so was given this clue from someone else. So beware of like relationships across teams. And Jeremy has played with Natalie, and also, you know, Sandra has played with X and Y. So
And Tony is a crazy person.
And Tony is a crazy person. Well, I said Tony's really erratic. I was like, just watch out for Tony because he's really erratic. He's phenomenal television. He's super entertaining, but he doesn't sit well in periods of non-activity. So he's just got to have something fun happening at all times. So obviously Splash Talk. I did include photos of the poker team. So I was just like, heads up. Tyson and Rob and Jeremy and Kim played poker.
So we can blame you for the drama of the first few episodes of the
I don't think that I can
Alliance.
call the credit on that one. I think did Yule find out from Reddit? Yeah, I definitely had kind of primed Danni to that. But
how much time did you spend on that?
What's that?
How much time did you spend on that overall?
Oh, not a lot, just several days. It became my all-consuming priority for a while. Yeah, I was really excited to just help Danni. And Jeremy's an awesome guy. So none of it's like that. None of it's like, this person sucks. There's literally nothing in there like that I would be embarrassed if one of them ended up seeing it. Because no, these people are great. They were great at the game. They're entertaining. They're, you know, it was just in my attempt to give my friend Danni some heads up on what maybe she didn't.
Yeah, none of those winners had anything really dramatic about them. They're all pretty good choices.
No. I had nothing bad to say about any of them. I mean, they're all great. I wasn't like, make sure you vote this person out first because he sucks. No, nothing like that. It was just information.
Who did you end up finding as you went back through all this was your favorite of those kind of winners that you ended up?
Oh yeah, like researching. You know, I've always really liked Denise. I just thought that Denise is one of the more level-headed people because she's the psychologist. I'm really working that one in here.
A sex psychologist.
A sex psychologist, which is the most interesting kind of psychologist, especially in Iowa. Oof. You know what? Now I'm falling back into my old.
A lot of stuff going on behind those closed doors, huh?
Yeah, I bet. You know, but yeah, it was interesting, especially to see Denise because she didn't have quite as many advantages as a lot of the other winners were. You know, when I was having that part of the dossier that was like number of idols or advantages found, it was pretty stark how many of the recent winners really just had a ton of advantages and not by virtue of being like handed down from high above, but they worked for it, you know. So I'm trying to find if I can I'm sure I actually have that in my email somewhere because I sent it to, let's see. Oh, by the way, for what it's worth, I also sent the same thing to Sophie. Sophie had the exact same thing.
That was what I was about to ask. Yeah, Sophie. She's your actual friend.
Yeah, Sophie's like an actual person I regularly say. So, Nick Wilson, 28-year-old public defender from Kentucky, engaged, no kids, won, season 37, jury vote, 7-3-0. Other seasons, none, already played with none, individual wins, 3 immunity challenges in a row at final 6, 5, and 4.
Go Nick.
Yeah, what's that?
It's like, go Nick.
Yeah, go Nick. You watch him for the end game. Oh, and then I also just copied and pasted their CBS bio too, just to have it all on page. Yeah, and I just had my like a subjective notes.
Wendell kicked it with Michelle.
Yeah, actually, under Wendell notes. It says he's a cool guy, well liked and well known within the newer Survivor community. Possibly friends with Michelle? ?
Ooh.
They were both at an NYC event in March and seemed pretty familiar. They'd make natural allies. They're both young, fun, single, and savvy. Oh my God!
I wish Danni had gotten a better footing at the beginning of the game. I think they ripped the rug out from under her right away.
Guys, it was this dream to have Danni just dominate, and then people would be like, but what of the other Guatemala contestants? Like, we should bring some of them back.
Yeah.
And then obviously not to be, but I couldn't be happier for Danni that she got to do that again and got her whole family out there on edge of extinction and just got to kind of relive that experience, which was really awesome. But yeah.
If SATs don't work out, you have a line maybe being a private detective.
Yeah, I think that's my backup plan. Really scoping out the info on people
on social
Make
media.
some psych profiles.
Totally. I would be down for that. Run some Myers-Briggs on people.
Well, me and Brendan have gone down the Survivor rabbit hole without Survivor because we started doing those like orgs. Have you heard of those?
Oh yeah, of course, the online something game. What's the R? Reality game?
Yeah, I'd never heard of those, and then we joined one, and we've been kind of dominating the one we're doing. So it's been fun. But
So those, okay, so I get a lot of invitations to play them, and I'd love to, but I honestly, it's just super hard to commit to that, especially during my busy seasons when I'm working like 80-hour weeks with SAT classes and such. But what's interesting is they use the Instagram profiles of former survivors to hide idols. So every now and then I'll get like an Instagram note that says like, you know, Blagogloff tribe idol. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I'll realize, oh, you're hiding an idol like in the comments of a photo I posted in 2017. And I imagine, although I haven't played it, my guess is, you know, the clues to the idols would be like, look for an idol on the profile of this like pre-juror contestant from the first 15 seasons. So that like, you know, these people have to go digging through all these.
I hope we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah, every now and then I get a comment, and then you know, within like an hour or two, there'll be a comment that says like Bulgogi tribe found, idol found, and so that's
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just time consuming.
That's the thing. I think it's super, 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 super cool, but I just cannot commit the time to it.
Well, fortunately, I've had the I really reduced my shifts at work because I'm releasing this medical device that we've been working on with Mayo. So I just, it's a COVID isolation. Any day we're going to be able to release it with the FDA's approval. But so I really cut my shifts this month. So I'm like, well, what the hell else am I going to do? So we did one of these.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah. And you like vote out, right? That's the whole, it's like, there's competitions and tribes and such.
I think we started with what, 22?
They're like word puzzles or like stupid things like who can type this in the fastest and stuff like that. But it's so time consuming because it's all social.
I know.
Really, at the end of the day.
And you can't read people because you're just texting them. It's like,
and you're just DMing with these strangers trying to form alliances, and you have it sounds really complicated.
Well, we started with 22. I think it's down to 11, and we're in pretty much the power position. So I'm sure we'll be voted out next.
So you think? Been there. Yeah.
So
good luck with that.
It is what it is.
No, it's a great way to pass the time, especially when we don't have Survivor to watch. And you know, Big Brother is such a pale comparison. Like I tried.
I can't.
I tried. There have been some good seasons of Big Brother. Not to completely dump on that show, but. I mean, both this season and Survivor Winners of War had such devastating boot orders for people who like the old school Survivor, or old school Big Brother. You know, watching like Janelle go so early and like Keisha, and you're just like, this is not worth my time because I don't care about these people who are in power.
At least though with Survivor, you got to see kind of Ethan's story while on edge of on an extinction. You know, with his almost passing out and kind of overcoming cancer and that whole mental battle, physical battle he had to go through. So that was pretty cool, at least.
Talk about a cool guy. I mean, that guy.
Oh, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Great character.
Yeah. And the change too. I think he's also a bit of a weirdo, which doesn't come across on TV as much, especially obviously during Africa when he was just this like, you know, beacon of justice and greatness.
Golden boy.
Exactly. But I think Ethan's really come into being like a total weirdo, which I love about him. Again, I don't really know Ethan very well, but from the stories I hear from other people and from what he posts on Facebook, I'm like, oh, you're straight up bizarre and I'm here for it. I love
his weird videos like that. Like clearly he put a lot of production value into.
His Instagram is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, he just put like a series of photos together of like eating a pickle, and then of course Richard Hatch is like, we have something in common. Because a pickle's like a penis.
I actually live like 40 minutes from Ethan. I should go knock on his door one day.
Yeah,
pickle salesman.
Total stranger surprise during COVID.
Yeah. Just say you're selling pickles because he's pickle certified apparently.
I did buy one of his old school Survivor shirts though.
I like those shirts. They came out really good.
They're great. They're fantastic. It's like, again, it feels like a rite of passage. So
you are old school. So but other than like yourself wanting to be cast in a future season, like what do you really want to see out of Survivor going forward, like 41 and beyond?
Oh man, you know, I do think it would be funny if I reapplied and just You know, I can promise you there is not a soul in that casting department who's a clue who I am. I could probably hit Jeff Probst with my car and he'd be like, hey, stranger, I don't know who you are, but sir.
Wasn't there someone that was almost casted a second time? I thought I remember.
Cade. I think Gabriel Cade from Marquesas did that.
Oh, okay. But he was, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I think that'd be super fun. What would I like to see in seasons 41 move on? I'm here for the diversity campaign is really interesting. I do think that there's something cool. That, of course, for and I know people get all weird about this, but it's not wrong. If you're one of only 2 people of your kind, your religion, your race, your gender. I mean, imagine a season that's like 16 men and 2 women. Wouldn't those women be like, this is a little weird, right? Yeah. So when this is like 2 Black people. By the way, this is coming from a Guatemala contestant who had exactly 0 Black people on my season. We had Lydia, who was
the fishmonger.
The fishmonger, yes. But yeah, I mean, like, sure. I think that there's a lot to be said for the challenges, the additional challenges of having no one like you there. And of course, it's a game where it's designed for people to be different and to be conflicting personalities. But conflicting personalities is very different from conflicting heritages or cultures. And what you share and what we take for granted being white. So I love the idea of the diversity campaign. I would love to see them give more even edits. I think that it's a little tiring. I mean, there was a whole string of seasons of American Idol where it was just like white guy with guitar, if we remember that era of American Idol. And yeah, it's like, okay, great, like not to take anything away from Tommy's excellent game in Island of Idols, or obviously Tony's excellent game, but it's a little bit like, what does it take for the woman to win? Does she have to be up against Ty? Just
yeah, particularly the last few seasons since the
I think
fire
the last
starting.
6 have all been male, right?
Yeah, I mean, you did have Sarah obviously beat Troy and Brad, Troyzan and Brad.
She's a badass.
But that's I'm like, you know what? I want to see more Sarahs. Yeah. I want to see more elevation of stories across the board too.
Right.
Sometimes I think they work too hard to either elevate the winning finalist or kind of berate the losing finalists, that you just get a lot of stories lost in the shuffle. And honestly,
or with Ghost Island, I feel like they really elevated Dom more than they elevated Wendell, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
I love Dom. I've talked with Dom. He's awesome, but
he seems like super, super cool. He's had a couple events that I just haven't been able to go to, so I haven't gotten to meet him in person. But if you want to talk about an unbalanced season, I mean, if you weren't a super fan, I don't know that you could name. I mean, I was going to say 5 people from Ghost Island. I'm not sure people could name 3 people from Ghost Island other than, like, let's say, forget about Dom and Wendell. Like, if you're not a super fan, who are you naming from Ghost Island? Like, you're not going to remember.
Jacob Derwin.
Yeah, well, okay. And honestly, he was gone at the end of the premiere episode because I think it wasn't the premiere of season 2 episodes. So he was only on for one night. And then you got like Sebastian and Angela and Jenna and Livy.
James.
James, yeah. Or James. I do like James a lot. Obviously, Chelsea.
Brendan.
All these people who just got glossed over. You had a bit of Kellen, who has also been awesome on Twitter.
She's really cool. Yeah. I like her. Donathan,
obviously, was a great one. But that season was just so unbalanced. After Chris Noble was gone, it just felt like a slow march to the end.
The two of them winning, yeah.
I just would like a better. So for 41 on, it would be great to just see better balance among the edits. And
I think Australia does a really good job of that, the Australian Survivor. But they also like some of their episodes are an hour and a half though.
Well, they also multiply several times a week, right? They've got a few episodes where there's no vote offs too, I think, right?
Yeah, there's some of those as well.
It's what, 50 some odd days, 55?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's 26 contestants or 24 contestants, something like that.
Yeah, they're just way better able to kind of get a broader scope of
which is interesting because they have a much smaller production budget too.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which means there's no excuse, is what that means.
Yeah, make it happen.
I think that's a really good point. If a lot of people have been calling for Survivor to have hour-and-a-half episodes, or Just
Yeah,
especially
what's the guess up going on that they can't afford the screen times? Like everyone's so clamoring to see like the latest episode of like SWAT. I don't know, like.
well, particularly if you're doing if you're going to continue the Edge of Extinction stuff, like they have to increase airtime, or at least just put all the Edge stuff online.
If Edge of Extinction is going to happen, it has to end at the merge. It is unconscionable for there to still be an Edge of Extinction going into Final 6. That is
maybe like Final 8.
Fine, you know what? I'll give you
maybe.
Final 8. But you cannot be having Chris Underwood emerge on day 35, 6, 4, whatever it was.
With immunity.
With immunity. And like, it's not even a good, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Hard pass on that.
I love that Devin's got to come back in, but that was, still before the merge. So
yeah, come in at the merge and then you're still playing the end game. I mean, you're still there for the game. You're still playing. And like, again, it's not obviously nothing to do with Chris because he was playing the hands he was dealt. And Edge of Extinction is a game on its own, but that's not Survivor. That's not what I'm here for. Like if I wanted to watch this, I would watch a completely different show. It's like when I remember playing, this is a throwback, but on PlayStation, it was Spyro 3, the third of Spyro. And then there's like, they add this skateboarding thing into it where you have to like do the skateboarding challenge. And I was like, if I wanted to play a skateboarding challenge,
Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk. Like I don't want to play skateboarding in Spyro. That's how I feel about Edge of Extinction when it comes to Survivor. If I wanted to watch someone emerge on day 36, having not played the intricacies of the social game and voting people out, I would be watching a completely different show. It's just not what I want to watch.
Well, it was also really dumb, like in Winners of War, when you had like, I think it was Ethan that voted for Natalie, and his reasoning was, well, I never played with Tony. That's why you shouldn't be voting because you got voted out early.
I mean, that's even a problem with the people who were voted out pre-merge but are on the jury, right?
Yeah. That's a whole other issue.
How do you feel about all the...
guys.
What?
I said, we should run the show.
Yes. I'm calling Jeff.
How do you feel about all the new advantages? I think they've gotten way too complicated.
I have to sympathize enough with production to know that to keep things fresh and to keep, probably honestly, I mean, they can talk all they want about keeping the game fresh and interesting. I have to imagine a lot of it is to keep it interesting for them, themselves within production to feel like, oh, there's something new and interesting that keeps me invested in this. So we're probably underestimating the degree to which a lot of these advantages are implemented just to keep the production invested in the game and keeping them feeling like they're doing something worthwhile with their time and that they don't feel stale working on the same show over and over again with any new challenges. So there's probably a lot of that goes into play, and I'll sympathize with that. But there's obviously a limit to this. Like, I didn't find an Advantage Geddon funny or entertaining when Sari went home. It wasn't great when Denise went home. Like, it's like, guys, this is the logical end game of implementing all of these idols and advantages and legacy advantage and this advantage and that advantage and vote steal and vote out. At some point, someone just goes home because there's no one else to go home. And that's not that interesting because it removes a lot of the social aspect of the game.
Right.
Not entirely, obviously. When Sari went home, Aubrey was only immune because Ty gave her immunity, and that is social. So there is a social aspect to it, but like, stop. It's too much. It's too much. I'd rather see people have to, like I did, wheedle your way out of a situation using
psychology.
Not psychology. Just trying to come up with a different word. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I definitely see where you're coming from, and I'm more in the camp that I think the freshest thing they can do is do an old school season of Survivor.
And maybe not like old school. Like if you take it back to like Token Genes, right? Where there's like a few idols hidden around, like where you had the Exile Island or something like that. Like that was pretty cool. And that was kind of like the level of I think I just watched 2016 Australia. So I'd be like their season 3 or season 1. And that's kind of like the level that they were at, where there's a few idols hidden around and no one knew if they had them, but that was all the advantage that there were. And I thought that was great.
Yeah. I mean, I know we all talk about going back to old school, but I do think if we watch probably some of those old seasons now, we'd be like, well, this is boring. There's a nostalgia effect, obviously, for a season like Borneo, but ultimately, even Australia, it's really one group in power that never loses power, that just takes out everybody else. I mean, even when Jerry and Amber go home, it's not like Tina and Keith and Colby were ever out of power.
Right.
So you know, and then obviously the same thing happened with Africa. There was really no part where Lex, Tom, or Ethan were ever in danger of going home, unless Brandon Quinton had gotten his head together.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that was one of, obviously I was a teenager, and watching him vote out, watching Kelly go home when it could, I was flames inside of heaving breathless flames. I was so pissed on that episode. I remember that vividly.
That rest of that season would have been far less entertaining though without Lex.
I mean, of course, and then you had Lex in All Stars, and there's the ripple effect. But what could we have had? Could we have had Kelly Goldsmith in All Stars instead? I don't know.
Yeah, probably over Amber then.
Yeah, maybe. And then we have no Rob and Amber. Oh my God. Oh, that's the butterfly effect.
Well, that's something that we actually do in our podcast is we do our rabbit holes. So like our first episode when we talk about Borneo, I guess Keith was supposed to be on Borneo. So he would have, I guess, demographically taken Richard's spot.
Wow, yeah.
And so that would have changed the entirety of Survivor. And then in the second one we talked about, obviously, like, you know, he's not a great guy, but if Scoopin hadn't fallen in the fire, like, you know, what would have changed there? So it's been fun. So yeah, 3, that would probably be our rabbit hole for the third episode when we get to that. For Africa, it would be, what if Brandon didn't have a brain fart?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to go back and think of how things could be different and where we would be. But yeah, anything that affects Rob and Amber is obviously an enormous impact on the game, on the show.
Yeah. That'd be crazy. Well, I think we'll let you go.
All right, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for reminiscing.
Yeah. Oh, I really appreciate all the stories, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's fun to talk. It's always, I don't do a lot of the rounds these days. Most of it's whenever there's something in New York, I'll pop by, but otherwise it's kind of relegated to our wine and cheese text chain and my rabid consumption of any new Reddit thread.
Well, any recommendations from your wine and cheese thread of things to help get past the time through the quarantine?
Just go rewatch Guatemala, everybody, and then, like, I don't know, write to Jeff Probst about it. I think that would
like how a certain tribe swap Scroob guy should get another shot.
You know, I just think there are worse ways to spend your time than that. Yeah.
All right, Brian, appreciate it, man.
Thank you
Thanks
so much.
for your time, Brian.
My pleasure.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take
Bye.
care.
I think that went pretty well.
Yeah, he's awesome. Big fan of him. All right, I'm gonna hit stop here.